sorry about that. I had to sort out. Can you hear me now? Microphone issue. So sorry about that. I had to sort out. Can you hear me now? Microphone issue. Okay, good. Now, let's bring up Chatty and see who's here. Freaking Ward, welcome. And yeah, all right. So this looks all good. Top swag code, welcome. All right, so let's talk about SmartEnum here first. So let's bring this up. I've got a few NuGet packages out there, and some of them have not been updated in a while. This one, latest update was 5 months ago, and it's had a few things since then. So let's go check out. I guess we'll look at the commit history. See what's been added. So 5 months ago was October, I think. I believe this got put in there. So it's probably this one, October 1st. That sounds about right. Alright, so we added support for system text JSON. What else did we do? Here's some build warnings, updated some dependencies, and allow SmartEnum string. So nothing huge. So let's just get a new version of this. I hate letting people give me new features and then sitting on them forever. Hey Ficeni, how's it going? You have to say it with feeling. Alright. What's up? That's about as much feeling as I can muster today. Alright. Great. Alright, so your lag's pretty good. Usually it takes like 10 seconds or more for somebody to respond to something I say, so that's good. Maybe my upstream is better. Alright, so I just need to create an update to this project's project file and basically say the things that we're changing. So let me grab the latest SmartEnum locally, and I've got way too many Visual Studios open right now, so let me bump a few of those down. That'll do. And see, we'll get to this later. But for now, let's go find SmartEnum here. And we're in Visual Studio, and I just want to see that I've got the latest, and then we'll update the details in the project file. Top Swag says, we were looking at API Endpoints project over Mediator. Would you use your API Endpoints project when starting a new project? Yes, I have been. It's been working great. John says, having trouble hearing you. My volume turned all the way up. Well, let me turn my volume all the way up. Here's the mixer. Tell me if that helps. I don't want it to be too bad, but is that better volume-wise? John? Testing, testing. That's better. Alright, good. Sorry about that. Like I say, I got a new setup here, so I'm trying to get it all worked out. Alright, let me go to my audio settings. Find my sound settings. Master volume, microphone. There's no microphone settings for changing the gain here that I see. Volume mixer. Volume mixer, but that's just output. That's not going to help you. So many things. Alright, I need that, but for input. So what does that look like? I don't know. I don't see it. So anyway, I told OBS to crank the mic to the max. So hopefully that's good enough. Better. All right. Hi, Trent7. We're looking at SmartEnum. I suppose since we're here, I should probably tell people about what this project does before I just go and update it on NuGet. So, what SmartEnum does is give you the ability to create enumerations in your applications that aren't just stupid primitives. So, you're probably familiar with the enum type in C#, and in enum you can basically say, here's some numbers and here's some strings that go with it, and then I just want to use that string anywhere in my code, and I can say, whatever dot, and get auto completion on this range of values. So if we look at an example here, like a SmartEnum list, I can say I'm going to use this test enum here, and let's say I want to assign something. I can say, you know, var something equals test enum dot, and it will give me 1, 3, 2. Not necessarily in the best order, I suppose, but there's, you know, the values that are in that test enum. If we go look at what that test enum looks like, we can go to its definition here, and these are just static read-only instances of this type. And so it's an actual class, so you can give it actual behavior, but it behaves more or less like an enum in your code. So being able to have a strongly typed reference to a string with a value behind it is really easy to do. But then if you want to have additional information, like, you know, it's commonly the case where you've got an enum that represents you know, something that you're going to put into a drop-down list. But also in that drop-down list, you want to be able to display the value in the user interface. And some of those enums might be multiple words, like, you know, this is an enum for your title, and your title might be programmer, but now it might be senior programmer. Oh, well, the enum is going to be senior programmer, all one word. But in the UI, you want there to be a space. So there's ways to do that with attributes and other hacky ways with primitive enums. But with a SmartEnum, you can just create those properties that you want on here, because it's an actual type. So you could add, you know, this is the whole class right here, but you could add whatever additional properties that you want on there. You could add a title, a description, a name, and a sort order if you want to be able to order them by a certain sort instead of just by you know, their values or their strings. How would that work with something like EF Core? Would you still use a normal enum there? This works with EF Core, so it does support EF Core. You can use these with it. So would you just make a custom converter depending on what you put in this, right? I mean, there's limits to what EF Core is going to support, but depending on what you put in this, it'll work. And yes, if you do something pretty custom, then yeah, you just need to use a custom converter. Exactly. So there's examples of that, I think, out on the website. Not sure if there's a sample in here that shows EF Core. I don't think there is, but this project's been around for a while. Folks have used it for EF Core, and you can see there's a bunch of support for different ways to serialize it as well, to different formats and things. Okay, so what we were looking at doing, just to get me back onto my original task, was I was going to try and just do a point release that says we're going to provide this new fix for value conversions to support enums to strings, and system.net.json. So system.net.json or system? That probably ought to be system text.json, shouldn't it? Yeah, system text.json. Sorry. Okay, so we're adding support for those two things. So if we come in here and we just go here, and this really isn't a big change, so I'm just going to make it 11. And we're going to say our release notes are add support for system text JSON, and this other pull request I just did, pull request closed, this one, where is it? This one fixed error issue number 101, which was SmartEnum value converter doesn't work with strings. So basically we fixed that. So issue 101 added support for strings to SmartEnum value converter issue number 101. Okay, that's enough, right? No more questions there. Okay, so I think we're good. There's still net standard 2. We haven't need to change that yet. While we're here, let's just make sure all our tests pass. And it's been 5 months since I published this. What is that? Assets file, SmartEnum, OBJ, project assets JSON file, run a NuGet package restore to generate it. Okay, you should do that as part of your build, shouldn't you? restore. Already installed. Alright, let's try clean. And also, did I ever get latest? I meant to get latest. I don't know if I did get latest. I don't think I did. Yeah, uncommitted changes. Okay, well that's fine. Let's add the commit. What are we doing here? Just know what I want. We were here and we're saying 1011, so adding version 1.0.11 changes to project file. Commit. Pull. An error occurred while attempting to open. Oh, that's great. Did I introduce a merge conflict? Probably did. Oh look, it's a merge conflict. Yeah, because we're actually on version 2. So okay, so let's make this 2.to.1 and take our package release notes from here. That's what happens when you're streaming, is you lose track of what you're doing. At least I do. And so in the middle of trying to get latest, I got distracted and started doing other things. And then I didn't get latest. And now here we are. So package release notes there. So we get our new version is 2.01. I thought 1.0. whatever seemed really low. And that looks better. So let's see if we can build this. It's going to tell me you're still unloaded. So I have to reload it. There's no more merge conflicts now. Alright, good. So reload the project. Now it's happy. Let's try and run tests now. All green. Okay, so if we go back out to GitHub, I believe that I have this all set up with a GitHub action to automatically publish. So you get a workflow for publish all the things. I don't think I need to publish any of the other ones based on the change I'm making. So this should work. Alright, the only thing that'll make this not work is if my key has expired, which is possible. But I don't think so. So I should just be able to push this out now, and it should automatically do its thing. Well, that's a lot of changes, isn't it? Merge. Unmerged. I did this already. I might have to drop down to the CLI because I've apparently screwed this up. I want you to just take this. Keep current local. There we go. Do that. Okay. Good. Now commit all the things. Alright. Let's see if this works. Probably screwing this all up. Boom. Now, if we come out here and we go look at our actions, we should see this thing happening. And it's going to try and put it out on NuGet, so when we go look at a NuGet, we'll see it there. Meanwhile, I'll let that run for a minute. Let's talk about result for a second. So result, if we go find it on NuGet, Trent says you can quickly get to the sound control panel with the input and recording tab. The following text. sys.cpl sounds. Alright, let's try that. My start task launcher has been really slow lately too. I don't know what's up with it. Alright, so there we go. There's my sound. And there's my chat thing I'm using. And its level is 0. It's interesting that you guys can hear me at all at that point. Is this much better? Anyone? Test? Test? No, it's probably super loud. Too loud. Sorry. How about now? Okay, I adjusted it back on OBS. Alright, so OBS is in 66 range or so. Alright. Thank you, Trent7. That was awesome. I don't know why this was so hard to get to. I tried every option from the task tray to get to sound, and this didn't come up. I know it used to, but Windows is making it harder to get to things. Yeah, they keep hiding it. It's like, geez, guys, come on. Alright, I'm going to have to make a note of what you said and tweet it or something to remember it, because there's no way I'm remembering mmsys.cpl sounds. But I appreciate it. Alright, let's see if that was enough time for this to run. Looks like it was. So, sweet. So if I come here and we refresh, there should be a 201 pending, which there's not. That's not a good sign. Why is there not? You said you worked. Publish on version change. Blah, blah, blah. Alright, what did you do? Generated package 1011. I told it to update that. I know I did. Somehow my merge must not have worked. Okay, so that's the problem. So let's go back to figuring this out. There's the 1011. Yeah. I told it 201. But somehow in all that merge mess it didn't work out. So let's do upgrade package version to 2.0.1. Commit. Sure, I want to save it. And push. That should work. So now here, but not quite here. Now here, this one should work, and then we'll see it. All right, so we've taken care of sound, which is good, and we've gotten SmartEnum publishing. Hopefully it works. It looked like it was working. As long as this one has the right version number, that should work all right. So now let's look at result, and let's look at what it's done on NuGet. So I've actually published a result update of 3.1 a month ago, so it's not so bad. And if I were smart, I would tag these releases so it was easy to see how long it's been since the last one. But I'm not that smart, so I don't know that I did that. But if we look on here, and we look in the last month, the only things that I've done is add a license, which I didn't do. Banu gave me that, which I just did an hour ago. And also an hour ago, somebody had to give me a pull request to add an isSuccess property. So the really only new change is that there's a new property called isSuccess. And if you look at what that does, it basically just says if the status is equal to result status.ok, then isSuccess is true. And so it's a minor update. But let's go ahead and update that. So let's grab result locally, which I will do here, and I will this time make sure that I get latest, so I don't end up causing merge conflicts. I'm surprised you guys could hear me at all with the mic gain set to 0. That was crazy. It seems like a bug that you would even be able to hear me. Alright, so we'll get latest. There should be some changes. Bam. Alright, now let's talk a little bit about what this thing does. Error activate. First we'll run our tests. Okay, so what is this result thing and why would you want it? Well, I just had a meeting with the DevBetter folks that I mentor this morning, and actually it was this afternoon, just a couple hours ago. And we were talking about this because somebody had asked the question, say you're using API endpoints, or say you're using Mediator, and you're passing stuff around between your controller or your endpoint, and you're using a Mediator command and you're sending it, and then you get back something from Mediator. Typically what you're going to end up with is something that just returns the result of that command inside of an OK result, because you just kind of expect it's going to work, and if it doesn't work, then it's going to go to your global error handler. Let's see what that actually looks like too. So there's that mediator ASP.NET Core. Let's look at this sample here. So result plays nicely into this, which I'm about to show you. All right, so let's say that you're sitting here, and you're using mediator. So you use model binding to get your command straight in through MVC. Go away. And then you just say, await mediator.send, that command, and you get back some result, which is going to be type movie in this case. Now, what is this command? This command basically is to allow you to create a new movie in the database. And so it's using this mediator interface iRequest of movie, and that's just saying it's this thing that is expecting to have a response of this type, of type movie. Okay? And so the handler then is an iRequest handler that handles that command and returns back a response of this movie. And so you can see it's a task of movie, and its input is the command. Okay, so then it just does the work of actually inserting the movie into the database, which in this case it's doing it with a repository. And when it's done, it just says return this movie. Okay. If this was async, then it would have an await in there, and this would just say return movie. Now, if we look at this, we've hard coded this OK result. So imagine if a moment that we weren't doing a create. Let's say we're doing an update. There's a few different things that could happen with an update. It could be that when I go to update the thing, I violate some business logic and it doesn't want me to actually do the update. Or it could be that the record that I said I want to update doesn't exist. And so inside of the update movie handler, which I don't have, but just imagine this is an update movie handler, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to say go get the movie with ID 123, right? If it's not there, then it needs to return something to the end user, to the client, that says it wasn't there. Now, one way you could do that is throw an exception, right? So now up here, it's never going to get to this line of code because this is going to throw, and it's going to go to your global error handler, and you're going to have a 500 error, a 500 response as your API response. That's not what you want. What you really want in this case is a 404. So you would end up doing something like, adding a try catch here, and then say catch, movie not found exception X, and then, return not found here, right? So now you're adding this type of logic in here because there's no other way to return this in this current design, right? Because we've hard coded the type to be the movie. Okay, so that's the problem. Let's look at the solution. So the solution to this is to add another layer of abstraction. There's no problem in computer science that can't be solved with another layer of abstraction, except for too many abstraction layers. And so let's just look at the result type. The result type is really simple. It's right here. This is the thing that's in the package that you get from NuGet, and it's a result of T, and it takes in the status that you want to give it by using these static factories that you get. So down here at the bottom, it looks like there's a whole bunch of properties, but these are all just static factories. And this is how you create one. So the happy path is right here. You say, I'm going to create result.success and pass it in the movie or whatever the thing is that you're returning. And if you need to also add a message, you can do that here. So you could have a success with a message for whatever reason. And then if it blew up, right, there was some actual problem, well, then you have this result.error where you can specify what the problem is. Now, an error is different from just an invalid request. So if you've got validation errors, maybe you're doing fluent validation inside your domain model, separate from your model validation that's happening in the API layer, well, you could do that here and pass in whatever validation errors you created through your fluent validation, and then return result.invalid here. Hey, John Calloway, how's it going? Of course, if you didn't find the record, you could say result.notfound, and if it's forbidden, you could say result.forbidden. And really, if you wanted to, you could add another custom result here. So if you had some specific API where you needed to return very specific HTTP status codes in response to certain types of conditions, this is extensible, right? So you could add additional things to it that would map to different HTTP status codes. So how do you use this? Well, let's look at this weather service. So this weather service lives in my core domain layer. So it doesn't know anything about the HTTP layer. It doesn't know about ASP.NET Core, right? You could call this from a Windows service. You could call this from a console app or from Blazor, wherever you want. But now when it goes to get a forecast, and I just used forecast because that was what came out of the box when I created a new API project. Instead of just returning back an enumerable of forecasts, it returns back a result of enumerable of forecasts. And it has a few little hard-coded things in here to say, like, well, if the postal code that you gave me in trying to get this forecast was called not found, then I'm going to return back this not found. That's just to demo that it works, right? And we could do some model validation in here and return back an invalid with a list of errors. If we pass in a valid test code, then a postal code, then it'll give you back, an actual success result here. And in this case, you just new up a result and it returns a success. And then otherwise, this is just another random one. Okay, so what would this look like if we ran it? So it's all hooked up. Let's run this so you can see what this package looks like. So here's the thing. 5555 should be okay. Blank or too long should give me a bad request, and not found should be a not found. So here's Swagger. Here's my post to forecast new. Try it out. Give it a happy path. All fives. Execute. We get 200 okay. Look, there's my forecast. Everything works the way you would expect. If we try it with not found, and we execute that, we get a 404. If we try it with something that's just too long, and we execute that, well, now it says, hey, postal code can't be more than 10 characters with a 400, right? It's acting exactly like you would expect your API to act. But here's the cool part. Remember that you normally would have to put a bunch of if logic in your controller to do that. Well, let's go look at our controller. Here's our weather forecast controller. And where am I looking here? Oh yeah, this is it. There's nothing to it. So there's a lot of comments here, but this is the code, right? We are returning whatever mediator.send returns. That's it. That's the whole action method right there, one line. So I don't have to have any if statements in there to see, was it a 404? Was it valid? Did I get an error? Do I need to try catch? Yada, yada, yada. No, it's one line. Whatever it comes back with is what I send as my action result. Now, notice here that my return type is not an iAction result or an action result of T, right? Which it normally is in .NET Core as your actions result type. Instead, there's this attribute on here that's a filter that's going to translate from whatever it is the result type is to an action result. And so that's what does the magic that makes this work. The other approach that you can use, where is it? Is that in here? Yeah, the other approach you can use is there's an extension method that says .to action result. And so if you do that, it basically works the same way, but instead of having to have an attribute, you can just make it so that your action still returns what you expect. In this case, it's using my endpoint pattern, and it's using an older version, so I probably ought to update that. But it's this thing makes it so it works with that pattern, because you're not normally going to change the return type on an endpoint. All right. So that's basically how this works. While I'm here, I may as well update the dependencies, though, right? So that's going to break some things. We can fix those real quick. So let's do manage NuGet packages. Look for updates, and it's got some old stuff. This is a good time for questions. Wouldn't an extension method look nicer? Result.toActionResult. I think that's what I have, isn't it? It's just, why is it so long is the question. What's this feature with the endpoint? All right, this was, yeah, why is it this .toActionResult? That's the question, isn't it? Shouldn't that just be result.toActionResult? Let's see what this is an extension on. Because I thought that's what it was. It's a result extension, but I put it on controller base. Why did I do that? Because you're right. You would think that putting it on result would be where to put it. It must be because I need the controller. It's because I'm using the controller base helper types. So if we could look at the source for this, that's the result of ASP.NET Core. Where are you? Right here. Result extensions. So I need controller base because I'm using controller.notFound, controller.modelState, right? I'm using controller all through here. So I'd have to pass the controller anyway. So maybe instead of saying this dot to action result, I could say result dot to action result. Maybe I could have both. But I'd still have to pass in the controller instance, which would be fine. I'd just have it as a parameter. So yeah, I think you could do both. Result dot to action result. Let's see. That was here. So what if we had, you know, alternately return, let's see, would it be weather service dot get forecast, which will be a result request. That's my result dot to action result this, right? Is that better? Show of hands. Who likes this better? Like it's going to be just as long, and it still needs to take in this somewhere because it needs to get to the controller. But I suppose I could give you both ways to do it, so that if you have a preference, you could do either one. One of them could even call the other because they're really just doing the same thing. It's just I need a static method that takes in a result in a controller and does what it needs to do. I would love if it was without this. Yeah, I don't really like this either, but I think it needs it. It needs it one on one end or the other, right? I think maybe this is better to show that it's like the thing that's going to an action result is this thing here, not this, the controller. Because this kind of makes it seem like the controller is going to an action result. So I'm with you. Let's just take, yeah. Anybody else want to weigh in on this? My limited audience here, participation. Let's add an issue for that. And if somebody wants to knock it out real quick, they can. But otherwise, I at least want to track it. So add a new extension method on result instead of controller to map to an action result. So basically instead of this, do this. I love that GitHub supports Shift Tab for this stuff. Nope, not for there, it didn't. There it goes. Good enough. Alright, submit that. You can assign you. I don't think I can assign you, but I can. Yeah, you're not in the project, but I can do a util stop swag code, top swag code. Is that you? Base API could have a method which will pass the controller, but we don't want to couple the packages. Yeah, I agree. Alright. So there, I'm assigning you via comment. Cool. Okay, so, and if I have time today, or like if you get that done real quick, I can do another quick update. Alright, so I've kind of gone through why you would want result, and at least one or two of you thought that was new and interesting, so that's good. That's why I made the thing. A month ago, 3.1, we looked at the history. We said pull requests closed. License I don't care about. Is success is really the only thing we changed. So let's go look at doing a quick update with is success added. So we'll do 3.1.1. Hold on now. I got distracted again. I wanted to update my NuGet packages. So let's go back to that. And let's do this. Why is Ardalis result even in here? I must have this set up to do that. Package reference. Yeah, that should be a project reference. I used to do this the wrong way. And by used to, I mean it's still doing it the wrong way. But if this is a project reference, it'll work better. So let's do that. It all still works. Alright, so now let's go back here. Let's refresh this. I don't know why that's there. That should go away. Must be my sample. Must also do it the wrong way. Yep. Alright, so that needs to be a project reference also. Anything else? My unit tests are project references, right? Yeah. Maybe. But down here. Alright, those all look good. Okay, so this should be fine now. Which means that that should get out of here, because that's just weird having your own package in your list of update. And it's still there. Why are you still there? Fluent validation needs it. Okay, fine. Get out of there. Let's find, where's that? Right there. It's minimized, that's why I don't see it. And we'll get rid of this. And we'll go add a project reference to result. Alright, now we're finally good. We are rid of that. Okay, but this one, sample web, get rid of that. And go to sample web and say it needs a project reference to ASP.NET Core. And now we're good. Okay, so let's do the easy ones first. These should not break anything. It's enough for one batch. I accept. Package is not compatible with 3. Okay. Functional project is this. Functional tests. There's no reason why my functional test couldn't be targeting net5, right? Maybe, maybe not. I didn't like something about that. Nothing depends on functional tests, so if I change it, it shouldn't change anybody else. So I might just have to do a build clean, get rid of its old stuff. Net5.0, is that what it is? Thanks for sending. I wasn't sure net5 was enough. I was expecting compiler would tell me net5 wasn't a thing, though. Doesn't have a target of net5.0. I think you're just making stuff up. Alright. Target framework, TFM, net5. Is it net5? Net5.0. Yeah, you're right. Okay, I shouldn't doubt you. So why is it telling me this? Web functions, Microsoft dependency resolution, does not have a target for net5.0. Restore. Alright, let's go to the command line. This always takes forever. Like, literally. 30 seconds. Alright, I'm in functional test. Let's try .NET Restore here. Let's see what we get. Everything's good. Alright. Can we build just this thing? Everything's fine. Alright, that's what I thought. Visual Studio is crazy. Let's look at that Consolidate tab for Trent 7. And yeah, what do we have? These all are just different versions because I'm in the midst of upgrading. But yeah, I do want to get them all in the same one. So let's just do that. See if it fails. I think the net test SDK is the one that failed because of the net 5 issue. Okay. So I'm still getting this net SDK error, but maybe if I can consolidate this one, everything will be happy. Yes, I accept. Okay, this says 2, but this says nothing. There we go, no packages. Updates, nothing. Let's try a rebuild. Now it's magically okay. So I don't know what was up with that. Apparently I still have a lot of updates to make though, so let's do some more of these .NET ones. These should all be pretty safe. Let's do those. I know I'm going to have breaking changes on the endpoints, but they shouldn't be too difficult to fix. I accept. Why are you being so slow? Package restore failed for web. Code generation is not compatible with NetCore 3. Okay, well maybe I don't need it. Maybe I shouldn't upgrade it. Well, let's try Net 5.0 here too, but that's going to open up a whole other can of worms. There's not that many breaking changes when you go from 3.1 to 5 for .NET Core, for ASP.NET Core. So that's all clean worked. Let's try a rebuild. All good. Okay, so that's good. What's left? These are still showing. Thought I updated some of them. Let's do the XUnit updates. Those ought to be pretty trivial. So many licenses. Speaking of updated packages, I need to go do the same on my personal project. Best to wait until our Ardalis chap publishes his updates, though. Yeah. None of these should break anything now. I'm not publishing any breaking changes. Alright, Simon. We're almost done. These Microsoft ones jumping from 3 to 5, those are the ones that are causing me headaches. And why is this so slow? Like, come on, Visual Studio. You're updating a text file and then just do it on NuGet Restore. It should take seconds. Milliseconds, even. It's just such a slow process. And you can't do like all of them at once because it just never works the first try. So that's why you have to do it piecemeal like this. Or at least that's why I've been conditioned to do it piecemeal like this. More licenses. Fingers crossed. What's it gonna break? The only thing using that stuff is the sample web app, so it should be good. Okay, now we're gonna break stuff. But that's okay. I know I'm gonna break stuff. And I think I only have like one endpoint to update, so it's no big deal. Alright, so API endpoints, which I'm not updating today because it doesn't have anything new, recently had a breaking change. Here's the project, and the new breaking change is that it supports generic handler types. So it looks like this. So you can say I have a base async endpoint with this request, with this response. And this was a cool addition, that somebody in the community offered. And it's really nice because before, if you had a single generic argument, you had to pick whether that single generic argument was a request or a response. And so you might have endpoints that take nothing in and give a response, and so you want to be able to support an endpoint of just a response. But you might also have ones that take in a request but don't really return any particular response, right? Maybe a delete always returns a 204 or something like that, so there's no reason to give it a strongly typed response object. This lets you do all those things, but I can never remember the syntax off the top of my head, so I wanted to bring this up to copy what it looks like, and then we're going to go fix it up here. So in my feature here, this forecast endpoint, we see that's where my error is, and it's a base endpoint of the old way to do it, of request comma response. And instead what we're going to do is the new way, which looks like this, and say with request of forecast DTO and response of IEnumerable of forecast. With response of that. Right, and I can get rid of this and maybe clean this up like that, and that should be good. And do I have any other endpoints? I think that was the only one. Woohoo! Alright, so we're good. So now let's verify our tests still work. That's why we have them. Boom, boom, and boom. Okay, so we're good to go. So what did we change? We updated our packages, and we did whatever that other thing was that I already wrote, I think. Right, there you go. No, I guess I didn't write anything. Okay, so all we did was that is success thing, and updated packages. So updated dependencies, added is success. Is that what I'm doing? Just verify that. Is success. Yep. Okay. That's there. Ding, 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 ding. And it is success property. 3.1.1. Alright. To be honest though, considering switching back to Azure Functions now, .NET 5 is supported. Oh, I missed some of this stuff. Syncfusion is going to be a pain for his app. Tend to do the Microsoft ones first. Yeah, that's the dependencies. Yeah. Switching your backend to Azure Functions, Blazor WebAssembly, static web app on Functions API is looking compelling. I have not tried that. I haven't done much with serverless. One of the things that kept me from it is a client that I have was considering it last year, maybe 2 years ago. It's been a little while now. But we ran some benchmarks, and every time you got past where it needed to spin up a new node, it was like major startup cost in terms of time, like 10 seconds, 30 seconds to spin up a new instance before it could start handling new requests. So I'm comfortable using serverless. Yeah, the warm-up. I'm comfortable using serverless for things that are not immediate requests from clients, from browsers, or from apps. If you want to have a service that like listens for a queue and does some work, great, that's fine. You can do that all day long because it doesn't matter if it takes it 10 seconds to spin up. But if it's in the hot path of a request that I need to respond to, I don't want that to be an Azure function that might randomly have to spin up a new instance and warm up. And yes, you can keep them warm by having something that's just pinging them constantly to keep them awake, but now you're paying for those instances all the time. Or you just set it up to have all those instances. But one of the key value propositions was that you're only supposed to pay for what you need. So if you're always keeping around an extra pool of stuff beyond what you need, like, what's the point? Okay, yeah, if it's a personal app, I guess the money could be an issue. I have a $150 a month Azure credit, and so all my personal apps fit within that generally, with my MSDN subscription. So that hasn't been a huge issue for me. Also, within that $150 a month or whatever budget that you get if you have an MSDN sub, or an MVP award gives you an MSDN sub, you can also just create a VM and put whatever the heck you want on it. So yeah, web app's what I mainly use for Azure stuff, and it works pretty well. All right, so let's just commit this. What did we do? We just updated dependencies, and it's showing this is not saved, so let's save that. And release 3.1.1. Commit, push, and if everything goes well, there should be a GitHub action on this one too that does what it's supposed to do. So not API endpoints, but which browser was it? This one. Alright, so let's go to my actions on result and see if this is doing what it should do. It is publish. Good. So it should be publishing. And that'll be here, and it'll be 3.1.1, and some more people will use it. Beta integration and managed identity for role-based is nice. Yeah, I haven't used that. Most of my stuff I need identity for, I end up doing identity server. For client work anyway. For my own stuff, I've just got the ASP.NET Core identity that's just in a database that's part of my system. So I have not used much of the Azure identity stuff for my apps. Why did you not build? Ooh, I know why. Who wants to tell me why it didn't build? You can probably read it right here. It's going to tell you. .NET Framework v5 was not found. So there's one more update I got to make, which is here. I got to tell it which SDK to use. So let's go here. This is not the one it's using, but I'm going to update it while I'm here. And what is our latest? 5.0.104? I want to say. .NET 5 SDK download. 103? 201. Alright, 201. I want that one. .NET version 201. Start commit. Alright, and then we want to go here, and we want to find publish, because it does the same thing, and it needs that right there. .NET version 5.0201. Everything else looks good, so commit that. Identity server is great. Runtime. Not sure what Vicini's is saying. Oh, you're talking about this runtime, the SDK. Got it. Simon Gearing says, managed identity is more than the web app having identity itself, so the app can access Key Vault or blob storage on behalf of the user without the need to manage credentials. That's nice. I haven't had to play with that. Alright, let's go look at my actions and see if this one's going to work now. This is usually pretty quick. And I've got emails telling me my build didn't work. More emails telling me my builds didn't work. And it says it worked. Alright, so let's go out here and hit refresh, and we should see it. It's not there. Publish Ardalis result to NuGet. 311 executing. Generated package, pushing it, created this package. Your package was pushed with new tag 311. Alright, so everything worked. NuGet's just being slow to show it, so it's usually pretty instant though. Oh, you know what? It's because I'm not signed in. That's why. So if I were signed in, no. If I were signed in, there it is. Then it would show this. That's what I was expecting to see. Alright, so that's good. What I do is internal facing hybrid cloud, so it's quite a different ballgame than a traditional website on Azure. Okay. Yeah, I have some clients that have that same scenario where they've got a pipe between their data center and Azure, and they're having to do stuff integrating between the two and use key vaults and a lot of the infrastructure. And they have large DevOps teams that are dedicated to making sure all that works and trying to get it all to work with infrastructure as code using Helm charts and other stuff like that, Terraform scripts and things like that, which is not my cup of tea. So I try and keep my stuff a little simpler. Alright, so this will show up for everybody else here in just a minute. It's listed. There you go. So, done. Check that one off. Boom. Anybody else doing a quick update to any of those packages here? Where's my chat? I lost my chat. Yeah, okay, so we're looking good. So now let's how much time have I got left? I got an hour left. I want to keep working on some stuff I've been doing for a sample for a course. So let me just share that with you and see what we can do with it here. Is everything working? I think it is. Alright, so I have this stuff here. This is all open source also. And I'll bring up the repo here in just a second. Let's just close everything up. And this is for an upcoming Pluralsight course. So if we go here and we say, hey, let's go to github.com/Ardalis/Pluralsight DDD fundamentals. This is what I'm working on right now. And running it is still a little bit of a pain. So if you try and run it yourself, there's some hoops to jump through and they're not well documented yet. And there will be some additional notes and things here. But that's all coming. This course won't be published for a few weeks, maybe a month or so. But inside this application sample, if you took the old Pluralsight course, the DDD course that Julie and I did, it's a veterinary clinic is the sample app, and that's the same now. But the old course was published in 2014, I want to say, and yeah, it says it right here, 2014. And so it's on .NET Framework, and it's, you know, older architecture. So yeah, someone said DDD, and my little bot jumped in and mentioned it. So this is an update to that same app, but using .NET 5 and using Blazor now on the front end, which has been a learning experience. And the old one, I did have an example in there where it had two different bounded contexts that communicated with one another using a service broker. And it was using a SQL Server service broker that was kind of a pain for people to set up themselves. So the new one is using RabbitMQ, And to run it yourself, you just need this, and that's it. Like one line, and it just works. So that'll be a little nicer. RabbitMQ has been a little bit of a learning curve for me because I haven't used it a whole ton prior to this, but I think I've got it mostly now, and I've got it working at least between two of the endpoints, two of the apps. So I want to see today if I can maybe get it wired up with the third app. And see, I don't have any good drawings of what this is doing, but I need to really create some. So let me see if I can do that real quick live with you. There's a really loud car driving by. Alright, so if I just open PowerPoint for now, I want to translate this into UML or something eventually. But for now, I'm just going to draw it out in my preferred drawing tool here, and just kind of give you an idea what this looks like. So let's say we've got this front desk scheduler app, bounded context, right? And then we've got another one of these over here, and this is the clinic management bounded context. And then we've got another one of these over here, which is the public website. Okay, so let's add some notes to this. So add a little text box over here, and we'll just say, what does this thing do? It sends emails via SMTP. Let's make this a little smaller, and also provides endpoint for appointment confirmations. So let's see, how would I draw this? I guess we'll put this one here and this one here, and we'll make a note down here. Let's draw a line like this, and we'll say insert some more text, because this is internet addressable, and this is intranet only, or private, or behind the firewall, or however you want to say it. Behind firewall. Alright. Bounced. So opportunity for a framework to .NET 5 migration course. Simon, are you saying you don't know that I just wrote and published a whole Microsoft ebook on doing .NET to .NET 5 migration? Which probably nobody knows, but I did. So there's an ebook now, Microsoft porting to .NET 5 ebook. Is there any chance that's going to show up? I don't even know how to search for my own book, but it came out like 2 weeks ago. Let's start there. It's close. That's not it. Let's try there. There, that's close, so that'll get me there. So, .NET Architecture Guide. Isn't there a porting? There it is. Porting existing ASP.NET apps. Look, it's me. So this thing, which I'll throw in the chat, is a good resource for exactly that. So I'm not going to do a Pluralsight course on it because I don't like to do Pluralsight courses that don't last very long. And I don't imagine that people are going to have to port from .NET to .NET 5 that many times for that many years to come. So I'll do an ebook on it because Microsoft will, give me money to write them ebooks. So great. But Pluralsight's more effort and most of my interest in Pluralsight is long-term residual revenue, which I don't think porting would really have. So, okay, so here's sort of this architecture diagram we're working on. And I need to put one of these in the course anyway, but it'll probably be prettier than this. So what needs to happen in terms of messages, right? Well, let's draw some arrows. So I need to draw an arrow that says from here to here let's make that a different color. And I really wish it were straight. Why can't you just draw a straight line perpendicular? I don't know, PowerPoint's stupid sometimes. Let's copy this over here and make it smaller. This is a send confirmation message, basically, or command, if you will. And then I need the reverse of that, right? So I need here, I need an appointment confirmed message that comes back the other way. Alright, so those are the messages that happened there. And then I only have one more that I really need to deal with here. Because again, this is just a demo, so it's not meant to be a full enterprise-y system. But there are a lot of them, so it's a bunch of different things, but it's let's just say doctor created for now. And then we'll have, you know, also room, client, patient, also updated, deleted. Alright, so there's those messages coming from the clinic management app, which manages those things, to the front desk scheduler. Okay, so with all that in mind, that's kind of the messages that need to take place. Let's look at the clinic management real quick. What are you doing? I got too many windows open apparently. Alright, hang on. Let's close down some Visual Studios. I've got extra RAM coming for this machine literally tomorrow, because it's got 32 gig of RAM, which you would think would be plenty, but with Chrome and Visual Studio and OBS and everything else, sometimes it's too much, so I have to close stuff. But let's look now at the clinic management here, and let's just close all the things. And I think this is still working, all the tests are passing. If we run this thing, it is running a Blazor WebAssembly app, and looks like this. Alright, and so it has clients, doctors, and rooms. Eventually it'll have patients and appointment types, but that's basically just lookup data that you can modify. Okay, so you come in here and we can add, let's say, add another doctor. And since we're doing this on a Twitch stream, let's call him Dr. Twitch. Him or her or whoever. I don't know what. Alright, so that's added. Okay. Now, because we're also running RabbitMQ, and I lost my browser menu that had this, but here's the important port right there, 15672. Because we're running RabbitMQ and it's listing on that port, when I created that doctor, it actually created a message that looks just like the one that I showed here. Alright, this doctor created message from clinic management to the front desk scheduler. And so if we go to that 15672, there, we log in, we go to our queues. It doesn't think guest is a very good password. It's not wrong. We look here at this front desk in, and we say get message, and look, there's Dr. Twitch right there. So this is what I sent, right? I sent a message. It is some JSON. It has two properties. It has an event type. It says Doctor created, and it has the entity that was created. Now it turns out most of my entities are just an ID and a name. So I created an entity message type that just has ID and name on it, and that'll work for doctors, that'll work for rooms, that'll work for different things. Appointment types, those all just have, you know, those couple things for the most part. Okay, so that's working, right? And that's RabbitMQ. Now let's look at my different queues that I have, right? So you need to come up with, and there's a whole book so you can read on how to do setting up queues and message buses and things like that with topics and routing and different types of exchanges. So I've got an exchange down here for front desk clinic management, and it is a direct exchange in RabbitMQ terms. There are other types here you can see, like a topic or using headers, or using fan out. Direct is a pretty simple one. So then inside of there, I've created a couple queues. So I have some code that creates these queues when the system starts up. If they're not already there, it creates them for you. And the two queues, I basically have an input queue on each end. I'm trying to catch up with chat real quick. It says, tend to use Lucidchart for this type of stuff. Also, good iconography from Azure. Edge helps a lot with that. Much more RAM when switching from Chrome. Might think about that. I haven't had great experience with Edge in the past, so I've been using Chrome forever, but Chrome does chew up memory for sure. Okay, so back to these queues. You have to identify the name of each queue, and it works easiest if you have one thing listening on each one. So this FDCM, the FD is front desk clinic management, and then this is clinic management's input queue. And then this is the front desk clinic management front desk input queue. Now why do I have this prefix? Well, because front desk in is not sufficient. I don't want to have only one front desk in, because these are coming in also, right? So I've got these ones coming in from this channel, and these ones coming in from this channel. And channel is probably not the right word to use, but because channel is also a thing here in RabbitMQ that I'm not really using. But they are different paths, right? So I want to have different messages, different queues for each one of those. So what I'm doing for now, and this is probably not a RabbitMQ best practice or anything, is identifying the queue by the two-party relationship that's involved in it. And so when I do the public web one, which I haven't done yet, which we're going to do in just a second, when I create something between front desk and vet clinic public, I'm going to have queues for FD VCP, and then have front desk in and have public in for this one and for this one. Turns out there's nothing actually going from the front desk to clinic management, so this doesn't really need to exist. Let's see if I just get rid of this. Get message. Queue is empty. So why are you showing me there's anything in it? There's one unacted message in it. How do I clear that? Reject. I don't know. Is there a way to clear it out? Delete, purge. Ooh, purge. That sounds good. Purge. Are you sure? Yeah, do it. Queue purge. Alright. So I don't think I need this thing at all. Is purge actually going to get rid of this thing? Maybe not. Alright. Well, somehow this one unacted message is just bugging me because it shows up here. And I'd like to make that say 0, but I don't know how to do that, so I'll figure that out later. Okay, so let's look at some code. So we saw clinic management. I ran clinic management. You saw it running. We added a doctor. It was glorious. If we go look at that code, here's the create endpoint. Somebody was asking if I'm using endpoints in my code now. Yeah, I really like the pattern better than controllers, because you can have just exactly what you need for that endpoint all in one file. So here's my endpoint for creating a doctor. It has just the dependencies that it needs for the create. I can define all my Swagger stuff here. If you don't need all that, just don't include it. It makes it so your files are even a little smaller. I haven't refactored this stuff here out yet, but those are going to go somewhere else. So this was quick and dirty code to get something working, but they don't really belong here. So when I'm all done, this whole thing will be like 15 lines of code total. So it gets in a create doctor request, which it maps to a doctor, which is again just a name and a value, a name and an ID. Then it adds it to the repository, maps it back to a DTO that it's going to return, creates this entity created event, and then publishes it. And so this message publisher, that's actually the RabbitMQ bit that's doing it. Now that could be done somewhere else, not in the endpoint itself, and it'd be easy to argue that it probably should be done somewhere else. Again, I haven't gotten there yet. I got this working, and I checked in my code and left it as a to-do item to clean it up a little bit further. So is the app or Rabbit responsible for sorting the post? Does the app sling messages at the queue on a single endpoint, or does it have to decide where to post to? Well, let's look at the implementation details for this. So this RabbitMQ service, let's see, message publisher, iMessage publisher. Let's go look at that. So that'll be in infrastructure. Under messaging, there's a Rabbit message publisher. And so this Rabbit message publisher basically takes in an application event, and then it needs to know some stuff. It needs to know an exchange name that it's going to use. It needs to know the channel that it's going to create. So here's the channel that's set up, and then it's going to use this routing key, which you probably could ignore, and send this thing to the given exchange, which is a constant that I've shared, and with the body. And the body is just the message having been serialized to JSON. So that's it, right? It just says publish this thing, use this routing key on this exchange. It's the same routing key as to mediators, com is to decom. Yeah, kinda. I mean, you're just sending messages around. The difference is that it's out of process messages versus in process messages. So yeah, you're not wrong. Okay, so that's basically it. Because I made this thing a fairly generic application event, and because I'm just taking an object here, I make this an object so that I can serialize the entire object. I didn't have that initially, and so this application event, if we go look at this interface, go to definition, here we go. It only has this event type. That was the only thing it was serializing, right? It wasn't serializing the rest of the properties on the thing that I actually wanted. So by downcasting that to an object, it kind of forces it to, when it does this serialize, it forces it to serialize the whole thing without just doing that. Okay, so that works, and that's how that works. Eventually, I need to move these last bits here somewhere else. I haven't decided where yet. So these application events for these entity created things, they kind of belong in like the core of the system, but they're really kind of infrastructure specific. They're not really domain logic, right? It's just a way to communicate. They really belong in like an anti-corruption layer if we're talking DDD terms, because it's a way for me to communicate outside. Now, if I had a separate application layer, that would probably be a good spot for them to go, but I don't. And if I did, it wouldn't be its own separate layer so much as maybe just a folder inside of my front end, my UI. So maybe that's where I'll end up putting it, is in some kind of application folder inside the API and put it in there. Don't think I see any issue with that immediately. So I could even call that something like an anti-corruption layer or something like that. But yeah, they definitely need to go somewhere else. So in the short term, I want to get them out of here now while I'm thinking of it. Let's put it somewhere else. So let's do maybe an application events folder. That'll do for now. This is all likely to change before the course gets published, but Julie and I will review all this. Let's do an application events folder, and let's just control dot this into its own file, and we'll control dot that into its own file, and now they're in the endpoint folder for doctor, which is not where I want them, so we'll yank them out of here and put them into here. And then a really nice thing that ReSharper has is this way to force the namespace to match the folder structure. Visual Studio doesn't have that yet, so you kind of got to do it yourself. Do that, clinic management dot API dot that. Named entity needs to be the same namespace. And then we just need to update some using statements. create, no, I don't want a temporary variable, go away. Alright, so that's that. Now where would I put this that would get it out of here, right? I could use mediator in here like we saw and have this thing, you know, send out a command to a handler that does the work. But the whole idea with endpoints is that they make it so you don't necessarily need a separate handler for that. So am I okay with just publishing this event right here, or would it make sense to publish the event somewhere else? And if so, how would I do that somewhere else? For now, I think I'm going to leave this here because it works. And at least now that I've pulled those other types out of there, this thing's not too big anymore. Hey, thanks for the follow, Nima. Viceni says it can go into save changes on DB context. Changes can be pulled out from the tracker, events can be triggered from there. This might automate some stuff. You'll never forget to raise these events. Yeah, but I'm going to have to figure out then from the DB context, I'll have to have some big switch statement or something that tells me which event to add, right? Like I could certainly subscribe to an event on DB context and say, hey, you know, save changes occurred. Oh, thanks, Nina. Appreciate it. But then, like right here, I know exactly what I need to do. Like I know I need a this right here. This is a doctor, right? I know I need to have an entity created event for doctor, and I've got all the context I need. If I go into save changes, an event handler off of save changes, let's say, like you're suggesting, then you know I can have some event handler in here that does some work. Like, you know, here basically the same as overriding save changes, right? But with an event handler. But I'm not gonna have any of that context. You can mark which entities are for integration. Okay, how would I mark them? I'd mark them with an interface, and I could say, well, if this is an entity, right, I could have a marker interface. So I can come into doctor and say it's an aggregate root, and it's also a synchronized application entity or whatever, right? So we could do this, and then in EF I could check and say, hey, is this the thing that's being changed? And if it is, was it newly created or was it deleted, or what's the change tracker say? And if it does, then I could fire off the appropriate event, right? And I guess the benefit to doing it that way would be that I'd only have to do it once, and it would happen for everything, which is nice, I gotta say, but it does add a lot of complexity, and it means that it's kind of magic. Like when I go look at the code for creating a doctor, this is pretty easy to follow. It's a little bit annoying to me that it's got quite so much mapping logic in it. Like we got a map from here and we got a map from there, but that's fine. I mean, that's just the fact that I've got a request as one type and a return type that's a response is another type. I'm going to have to do a little bit of mapping to do that. But yeah, I think this is okay for now. I like the idea, and then I think I'll add a note here to suggest possibly doing that in a real app, quote unquote. But it would add a degree of magic to it. So we'll add a note. These messages could be triggered from the repository as one option, or DB context events. Repository, you'd have to still write a lot of code probably, but it is a separate option. In the DB context, you could look for entities marked with an interface saying they needed to be synchronized via what we call these cross-domain events, and publish the messages, publish the appropriate message. So I'll put that there for now. Simon says he does something similar to AutoWire mapping profiles in AutoMapper, IMAPS to and IMAPS from. Oh, okay. So that you've got that hard-coded. and you could add as many of those as you want. Yeah, the thing about these AutoMapper profiles is like you create these mappings of things, and then some of them you probably don't even necessarily need later. So like as your application evolves, it's not unusual to have some of these things that aren't even being used anywhere, but you can't really get rid of them because there's no compile time checking to know if they work. It's not until something calls map at runtime that you'll know if you actually needed it or not. So it would be nice, I think, if there were a way to determine which of these are still in use, which is not something I'm going to deal with today, but get rid of those. Yes, then default interface implementation. Yep, implement map if yep. Okay. That's not actually a thing, so we can get rid of that. How are we doing on time? We got half an hour? All right, let's see if we can do something with the public website. So in the clinic management, we fire off that message. In front desk, which is here, we consume that message. So how do we consume the message? Well, I'll go through this quickly so I can try and get the public one working. In the API, when this thing starts, it creates, or it in startup, it fires off a hosted service, which is a background service. So it basically pulls the messaging details from config, creates them as this RabbitMQ configuration thing, checks to see if messaging is enabled, and if it is, then it adds this clinic management RabbitMQ service. That clinic management MQ service is a background service. That's a built-in type in .NET that lets you run something as basically a service, but built into your app. So this has been something that's vexed .NET developers for decades, which is like one of the most common questions you would ever have about ASP.NET apps back in the web forms days was, how do I run a scheduled job with my ASP.NET web app? Because ASP.NET web apps are like just designed to handle requests. They're not designed to like run something on a periodic basis. And so you added things like, well, I'll install a Windows service, or I'll once the cloud became a thing, it's like, well, I'll create an Azure worker role and do my work there. I'll create an Azure function and let it do the work. But if you don't need all that stuff, you don't actually want to have a separate app, a separate service that you have to deploy and maintain and make sure it's running and all this other stuff. If you just want to have the ability in your app to have this like other process that's running and doing stuff, that's what background services let you do. That's what iHosted service lets you do. So in here, there's a method that's going to get called this execute async method. And that's the thing that gets run that you can basically put all your code into. And so when this thing gets created, it has all these dependencies that you can specify, including, and this is kind of cool, including the ability to talk to not Blazor, SignalR inside your background service, which I didn't realize until yesterday was a thing you could do. But I can have my background service listen for messages like a new doctor was updated. And actually, let me show you this. So here's the thing, here's the app, and it looks like this. And I killed the other app, I think. No, I didn't, it's still running too. So in here, right, we've got this, no, I did kill it. Alright, so that one's there, and that's front desk, and that's clinic management. So let me go start clinic management again. So here's clinic management, we're going to run this. Yeah, Hangfire is another one that you can use, solving the same problem from a long time ago, but ASP.NET Core lets you do that without having to have Hangfire. Alright, so we're going to add another doctor, but I'm going to do it over on this other screen that you can't see. And then in here, what it should do is SignalR should trigger a thing up here. So we're going to add yet another Dr. Twitch, even more so, and we'll save that. And look at that, boom, added, right? And so in my logs for the app, here's my front desk app. Here it's logged it from the clinic management RabbitMQ service. It received this doctor created event and did the thing. but also it used SignalR from a background service, so not even part of your web app, right? That's the coolest part, to communicate that to the clients. So in here, this is the code. It says, hey, go get this message and process it. And when you're done, consume it off the queue. So if it doesn't work for some reason, if something in here blows up, then it won't actually get rid of it off the queue. So it'll try and reprocess it over and over again. And eventually it'll end up in like a dead letter queue, and you'll need error handling for all that. I don't have all those details in this demo, but that's the idea, is that you want to acknowledge that you got that message so that RabbitMQ knows that it can get rid of it and safely move on to the next one. Okay, so then in onMessageReceive, I just parse it into my JSON, and then I call handle message. Handle message is where the real work happens, and this is where we're using Mediator. So I use system text JSON to parse the thing and get the event type. I create a scope and grab Mediator using that scope. I need the scope because Mediator needs to be able to get its dependencies, and Entity Framework will also need to be able to get its dependencies, and it's set up as scoped. So we'll see that in just a minute, because when I do mediator.send, it's going to be inside of this scope. And so when this command handler runs, it's going to pull dependencies using the same service provider here that was used for Mediator. So I create a command, which is just an ID and a name, and I say send this command to go create a doctor. Now, in this app, in the front desk app, the doctors are just a read-only thing, right? So they're an entity. They're in my database. I have a separate database from Clinic Management, but they're synchronized via RabbitMQ. Hey, thank you for the follow, Ducraux. I'm not sure how to say that, but thank you. And so because they're in different bounded contexts, they have their own database. They have to coordinate somehow, right? And so they need to communicate changes, and you can do that in a number of different ways. You can do like a two-way sync if you want to synchronize in both directions, but that gets really complicated. So anytime you can, you want to have just a publisher-subscriber relationship. And so going back to my diagram here, the clinic management bounded context is the owner of the doctor records, right? That's where we're going to make any updates that need to be made. The front desk application is just a subscriber to it, and it has its own copy of that data that it maintains so that it can run in isolation from clinic management, but it does not make updates to that itself. And so if we look at the code for this, there's nowhere in my code that I'm going to actually update doctors. Instead, I'm only going to get those updates from this RabbitMQ service when it calls this handler with this create doctor command. And so where I've implemented that for now is inside of my infrastructure in its data folder. I created another folder for sync, for synchronization, and that's where this handler lives. Now, because these are using integer IDs, they're actually using identity columns. So I need to set identity insert on in order to keep the same key on both sides, and then do the insert here, and then just return. So when this is working, if we look at the front desk doctor, which we just added that Dr. Twitch, if I say view data, we should see this Dr. Twitch exclamation points 32 was created, right? And it has 32 as the appropriate number, which is the same number that's in the clinic management database. And we could see that too if we go look here and say clinic management database right there, and we say look at its table. It should become obvious that these are different because this one has a whole lot more in it than the other one does. Right? There's a whole bunch of these that didn't actually get synchronized while I was trying to get it to work. All right. So that's a key thing in DDD, is that your different bounded contexts have their own database. And a common question is, well, how do I synchronize data between those databases? And this is one such way. It's not the only way, but this is one way that you would keep them in sync, is through something like RabbitMQ. Okay, so now we're finally up to the point where we want to talk about how are we going to get the data to the public website. So if we go to Vet Clinic Public, open that up as another solution. Remember, this website has two responsibilities. basically those are, first it's, it's a brochure website for the server, but it's just a single project, right? It doesn't have this whole onion architecture, clean architecture style thing, right? It's just one project. And if we run it, what we should see is something like this. Okay, there's your app. All right, it's got a home page. It's very exciting. But two things on this. One, this is the thing that sends emails, right? So, we could use a third-party cloud service for this. We could use SendGrid or something like that. But in this case, we've decided that a responsibility of this app is to send emails using a local SMTP service that it has running on it. And because it's internet addressable, it can actually be on the proper ports to send emails and everything from here and not get blocked by the firewall, right? These things can't send emails. They don't have SMTP running. They're behind the firewall. They don't need SMTP installed. So that's why they send things to this to send it. So there's a message that they need to send here. This send confirmation, which it won't let me highlight, does that. And then the other responsibility is it provides an endpoint for appointment confirmations, which needs to send a message back to say that appointment was confirmed. All right, so that code exists. If we go look at the controllers, and we have this appointment controller, and there's this confirm, that's there, right? And you have to pass it an ID, and it needs to do the work now of actually sending back the confirmation message. It needs to look an awful lot like what the create doctor API endpoint look like. Brainwash is asking, why does it have an index page at all? It seems more like a service web app, right? Well, I mean, it is the public website for the app, right? So imagine that this has their address and their phone number and whatever else. So, in this case, I didn't bother with all that, and it's not important for the application. But this would be their public brochure web page, right? Could it be that they host their public brochure webpage on WordPress and they just have this as a service website? Yes, that would work fine. I just didn't do the demo that way. That's the only reason. So yeah, it's a simulation of a public website. It doesn't need to have an index otherwise, though. Okay, so how do we get this to work? Well, let's go look at our code over on the other one, clinic management, and that's not it. Where's clinic management? That one, clinic management. When we create one of these, we need to be able to do this. We need to create an event, and we need to publish it. So let's take that code, and let's just copy paste it over here for now. And what are we doing? Well, it's not an entity created event. It's really more of a appointment confirmed event, and it really needs an appointment ID or something here, or just a GUID. We just pass it the ID, I think. Now, somewhere, this thing used to have in the old version an appointment confirmed event. There it is. So let's see, how close did I get? Does that thing take an ID? Oh, look, it does. Okay, so I've already got this. This is from the old version of the course. Might be worth putting a note on the index page stating as much. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Let's go to my home view, index, and get rid of all this junk. And this app serves as the clinic's public website and would include their address, phone number, hours, pictures, etc. If their public website were hosted elsewhere, this could just be a headless utility web app. How about that? Alright, so then let's look at this event. This event shouldn't really need to change. It's got this event type, which pretty much matches what I was using before for the other event. If I go look at the management API, we go look at this entity created event that we just put here. It also has an event type as a string, and then it has the entity with it. I'm not going to have an entity with this one, I don't think. I think I just need the appointment ID, but the event type will be the same, so that works. It's got a GUID ID and an appointment ID. Why do I need an ID on here? I guess that's an ID for the event itself. That's fine. That's not hurting anything. And maybe that'll help me with tracking that event or logging or something like that. Alright, so now we are back to the public website, and we created the thing and we need to publish it, right? So we need a message publisher. So let's go back to create, and let's go grab this message publisher. And is that some abstraction that I could reuse in multiple places? Let's get its definition. And it just publishes application events. Now this thing isn't necessarily an application event, but it is an event. So let's go back over here. Appointment confirmed event is not an application event, so there's the thing that sends the emails. Let's just add this other interface, message publisher. Publishes an event. Should be an object. I guess it could just be an object. Event to publish. That's not very strongly typed. Double ID thing reminds me of the way SQL merge application does this sort of data sync. Sure, sure. I only have one thing I'm publishing, so I mean I could just even make it this type and it would be fine. So why don't we do that for now? That's not gonna scale for long, but it's better than having it be object, I think. So we'll go here. iMessage publisher will actually literally just take an appointment confirmed event for now. We'll put a note on it that it'll be more generic later. Let's get rid of that. Let's go here and say for now we only need to publish one event type, so we're using its type specifically here. Okay, somebody is gonna call me out for that and say I should have used an interface or something, but this will work. Alright, so now this thing doesn't exist yet, so let's add a constructor and let's take in an iMessage publisher. And map it. Okay, so now we can publish a message. We don't actually have an interface implementation yet, but that works. Now I need to implement that thing. So over here we have a message publisher with Rabbit, and I think I'm going to need all that code. So that's a service, and I'm just going to paste it right there. And I don't need all that. Alright, so let's pull this over to, that's fine. That's fine. Move file. Where do I move the file? There we go. Boom. Alright, so there, we're in our own file now, and using Rabbit, implement the interface. I want this to be the other type, so that's going to be appointment confirmed event. There. I don't have guard clauses, do I? I'll have to add that. I'll just comment that out for now. I'm not even using my shared kernel. Alright, we need some packages, so let me get a drink of water real quick. Alright, that's still not perfect, but it's better. I need my shared kernel, which is a Pluralsight DDD type that I actually published on a public NuGet. So we'll install that. And then while we're here, okay. While we're here, let's add Ardalis.guard clauses. I didn't realize somebody forked my project and then still mentioned me by name in here. These guard clauses are meant to be used with the EXCSLA shared framework by H.E. Collins about a month ago. Okay, that's interesting. I've never heard of the EXCSLA shared thing. Sounds like it's related to Rocky Latka's CSLA. Anyway, alright, we got the guard clause, so we can control dot that in. And we got the confirmed event, so we can control dot that in. We got the shared kernel, so we can control dot that in. And control dot is my favorite thing, because can you imagine having to write all this code and go figure out all the stupid using statements by hand? That's how it used to be back in the day, before ReSharper, before Visual Studio. So why does it complain at throw X? Because it's not doing anything. Rethrowing caught exception changes stack information. That's why. So I should just get rid of this because it's not doing anything. But ideally I would log something here. I don't think I have a logger in here currently. Alright, so that should be pretty close. I get rid of the namespace. Public class. Why are you not there? These are all lined up and this one's extra. Still failed. Different place, right? Yeah, I don't know how that happened twice. Alright. Yeah, I borrowed this code from a template somewhere, and it had this in there, but I don't think it's really helpful. So I'm going to just delete it for now, and if I decide I want to do some logging there, I'll do it later. But that gets rid of that warning at least. Alright, so now what are we going to publish here? Do I need to change anything? It was an erratum key of entity changes, which I don't think is really what I want. This is more of a appointment confirmed. So we'll call it that. And the exchange here is not front desk clinic management, but rather front desk vet clinic public exchange. So we'll set that up. So now it's going to the correct exchange. And where's the queue? I think I set the queue up on the other side. So this should do half of it. Now I need to be able to give it a GUID and have it confirm that. Does this thing do any kind of check? It basically says, oh, you gave me a GUID? Alright, I'm going to create a message for that. Even if it doesn't correspond to anything. So if I just give it a empty GUID, that should be fine. Tools, create GUID, new GUID, copy. Let's see. So there's a GUID. Let's just borrow that GUID for now. And copy that and Control F5 this. Now, I don't remember if I've got Swagger on here. Let's find out real quick. Nope. So I guess I just got to do it like confirm whack this. This should just be a link, right? I think it's appointment confirm. So this route, let's just put in a comment. it should be appointment whack confirm whack ID, because that's the default route. I should probably add a strongly typed route here, HTTP get, and just override it and make it be that. Right? Appointment confirm ID. I don't need that anymore. Now I can tell what that is. Alright, so now let's go here, and this should just have appointment confirm whatever, and there we go. So we hit the endpoint. Of course, we haven't wired up the service yet, so we're going to get this iMessage publisher, I don't know what the heck that is, error, so I have to just wire that up in startup. So we go to startup now and find our configure services, and look at all this RabbitMQ stuff that I've got in here. I'm not even using any of that stuff anymore, so I found a different way to do it. So I think I need to get rid of that, but not right now. So we're going to do services dot add, and this message publisher should be a singleton, I believe. So let's go back to startup. So this will be add singleton, iMessage publisher, Rabbit message publisher, like that. Alright, and if we build and run that, it didn't like that. Why don't you like that? Singleton implementation type, unable to resolve service of type. I pulled object policy while attempting to activate that thing. Well, I solved that already over in clinic management. So how did I do it? Would have been here, API, and or would it have been an infrastructure of this thing? Yeah, there's my pulled object policy. Alright. So in here, I told it using autofac to register mediator, register service factory, this stuff. Alright, so I need all that over in the web thing in order to use the same type, because the message publisher needs the object pool provider, which needs the Rabbit model pulled object policy thing. Alright, so I just need basically all that over here. But I need to do it the .NET way because I'm not using autofac over here. So that's a singleton, that's a singleton, that's a singleton. They're all singletons, so that's easy. So the first one I've got, the second one is object pool provider here. Wants the default provider here. And then the last one is I pulled object policy of whatever. Should be this one, which I don't have over here yet. Alright, and you should be object pool, that's all green. RabbitMQ client, that's all green, so I just need that thing. Right, so this can all go away. And I got 2 minutes left. Alright, let's see if we can get this to compile in the next 2 minutes. So I just need this object policy thing. Should be to there. Let's go find my publisher, which needed this policy somewhere. Paste it in here. There's our policy. Let's see, we can get the connection, talk to localhost, use all those things, and that's all good, that's all generic. Alright, so nothing needs to change there. And let's go back to startup. that's all green there too. So we can build succeeds, we can run, and it works. We can go here and pass it that GUID, and it says thank you, and it works. Alright, so now let's go to localhost, RabbitMQ, and let's see our exchanges. And this vet clinic public didn't exist before. It's the first time we've ever hit it. And in this queue, I don't have a new queue for that yet, so I got to create a queue that consumes it. So, but that works. So that exists. So we publish some stuff. Now I need to create queues that'll be listening to it. So that's on the other side. So what's the other side in this case? Well, that's front desk. So front desk needs to have this thing. This is what's responsible for creating all my queues. And where are they? Front desk in. So there's my queue in right here. And this is the clinic management service. So what I need to do is copy this and rename it to be vet clinic public. Right? Instead of clinic management. There's probably pros and cons to how many of these things you want to run, these background services, but I can get away with running 2 of them, I'm pretty sure. So this becomes vet clinic public, goes there, and then my queue becomes dot front desk vet clinic public front desk in. That's the one. My exchange becomes front desk vet clinic public exchange. These all stay the same. This all stays the same. Changing the wrong file. Thank you. I hate it when I do that. I do that so often too. Alright, let's try that again. So, vet clinic public. You guys know what I'm going to do now. Gave it away. Alright, and this becomes front desk vet clinic public front desk in, and this became front desk vet clinic public. There we go. And now we're in the right place. And all the stuff works, and all the stuff works. And if I did my job right, there shouldn't be too many things that I changed except this entity changes. I haven't coordinated that yet. But that was over in this publisher, I think. So this magic string, I need to put that in my constants, I think. But we're going to put it here for now. I grabbed the quotes. I didn't mean to grab the quotes, but there we go. Routing key. This routing key should really be using the variable I just set. That looks good. And it'll print stuff. It'll do. It'll say if it's doctor created, do the thing, which is fine. We're not going to do that though. For now. Instead, let's just create a notification that says appointment confirmed. And that's all. I'll see if I can get this to work here real quick. So there's that. Alright, so let's build that. We don't actually do any work down here yet, but that succeeded. For this to work now, I also need to wire it up in startup and do this vet clinic public, that guy. Alright, so we'll start that up. And it should create the necessary queue. And let's run it. So I got all these other things running still. I'm going to shut down all my services that are currently running, all my web apps. So we'll run this, and it'll probably blow up for some reason or other. I guess. Huh. Why couldn't it connect to API? That was weird. Well, let's close this and close this and go back to front desk and let's try this again. Control F5. You gonna work this time? There's the API. Do I still have it running? I have it running. That's the problem. Close, close. There we go. One last time. One last time. Get rid of that. I thought I'd closed all my apps, but there were some minimized. There it goes. Alright, now it's running. Okay, so that's that one. Now let's go to Vet Clinic Public. Run that one. We're here. We've got this right here. I'm going to hit this endpoint. So I don't need this. I don't need this or this or this. If this works, if I hit refresh on this, it's not going to work on the first try. Who am I kidding? Alright, it should be popping up messages here, but it's not. So there's something's amiss. It is getting them onto the queue though. So the problem appears to be that I'm not listening, and here's why. Something blew up. Appointment confirmed event, unhandled exception, get property name. Oh, that's why. I know why. Alright, so let's see. I can get this fixed in 2 seconds and we're out of here. So in this one, I am trying to get this entity property, which I don't have. So I've got an event type, but I don't have an entity, which I don't need anyway. So we don't need that. We get rid of it. And try it one more time. We'll actually close everything down this time. Control F5 on this. Alright, and then same thing on Vet Clinic Public. Alright. Here's my thing I'm going to hit. Here's the app. And let's refresh. Woo, look at that. And they don't stack up if there's more than one, but it is doing it each time I do it. So, yay. Alright. That's it for me today. So it's after 5. I've got that working. I'm going to commit some code here in a minute and call it a day. I hope to be back on stream next Friday as well, 3 to 5. There should be significant progress made on this Pluralsight course here in the next week as well. So if you're interested in this particular repo, you can follow it. If I can find another tab here. Go out to github.com, like Ardalis. Just follow me, and you'll see anything I'm doing. But you can also go to my repositories and find the Pluralsight DDD Fundamentals course, and you can star that, watch that, follow that, whatever you want. It's already got a decent number of stars, considering that it's for a course that hasn't been published yet. It's still under development, obviously. But yeah, that's all I've got for today. So. Thanks for being here with me. I'm not going to bother trying to raid anybody, because last time I did that, there wasn't anybody around. But we'll just call it a day and let you enjoy the rest of your weekend. All right. Thanks. Bye.